Right, so welcome to Maths with Holly. This video, we're going to look at the mean, median, mode and range because this is what I've just looked at recently with my grade 8. And then we'll look at some more complex questions. So what we'll do first is we'll go over what is each one and how we work it out. So we're going to start with this little example here. I have 6 numbers, as you can see at the top, 10, 12, 4, 10, 13 and 11. And we're going to work out each one. So we'll start with the mean, then the median and so on. So first we need to recap. How do you work out each one? So let's look at the 3 averages first. So the mean, median and mode. So the first one, the mean, this probably is the most common one people remember. And that is where you add up all your numbers and you divide it by how many numbers that you have. So in this case, I have 6 numbers. The median is the middle number when the numbers are in order, from smallest to biggest, or ascending order. If there's 2 numbers in the middle, you add them together and you divide by 2. And that is only when there's an even number of data in this question, because there's 6, it is even. Mode is the most common, so it's which appears the most. If you have more than one mode, it is called bimodal, but you can't have more than 2. And then the last one, which is the range, is talking about the spread of data. So we do the highest subtract the lowest. And that will tell us what our numbers are spread over, how many digits. So just to help us a little bit, the definitions are going to be here. So mean, median, mode and range. So let's actually work out each one. So the first one, what I need to do is I need to add up all my numbers. So in this case, we've got 10 plus 12 plus 4 plus 10 plus 13 plus 11. And then I need to divide that by how many numbers we have, which is 6. So if I add up all them numbers, it's going to give me 60. 60 divided by 6 is going to give me 10. So with these numbers, even though at the moment it doesn't mean anything, I could be talking about people's age. The average is 10, okay, if we're using the mean. Okay, so the mean is 10. The median is the middle number when they are in ascending order. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put the numbers in order. So 4, 10, 10, 11, 12, and then 13. There's a number of ways to do this. The very easy method is just actually count what's in the middle. So we have 2 numbers that are in the middle here, which are 10 and 11. So we need to add them together and divide by 2. And the answer is 10.5. So the median of my data is 10.5. The mode is the most common. So this one's nice and easy. So we just look for which number we see the most. So in this question, the only number that repeats is 10. And then the range is the difference between the biggest and the smallest value. So it's the spread of data. So in this example, it is 13 minus 4, which is 9. Okay, and they are the 3 averages and the range. And you want to have a little pause to have a little look over that, where it's not my handwriting, it's a little bit neater. But they are your averages and your range. Okay, so that's just a little recap. What we're going to have a little look at now is a little bit more problem-solving questions, so changing the mean. Okay, so we're going to have a little look at the mean in more detail, which we know is you add up all your numbers and you divide by how many numbers there are. So if we look at this problem here, it says we have 4 numbers and the mean of the 4 numbers is 9. Okay, the first 3 are 6, 7 and 11. And it wants us to work out that 4th number. So you want to pause it, have a little go, and we're going to go through the answers now. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to set up what we would usually do. So I know I would add up all my numbers. In this question, I don't know what that 4th number is, so I like to call it x if I don't know. And I need to divide that by 4. And my answer is 9. So now I have an equation to solve. So if I'm going to solve this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify the top first. So I'm going to add 6, 7 and 11 together. So I have 24 plus x, unknown number, divided by 4 is 9. Now you might know where I'm going with this. So to get rid of the division, I'm going to times both sides by 4. So I'm just going to go up here. So 24 plus x is going to be 36. So now should be nice and easy. X is going to be 12. So that missing number is 12. And you can go and test it by trying to put 12 back in. So if you add them all together, it is 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Okay, so a little bit of a different question. Right, let's go on to a similar one, but this time there's two numbers we don't know. So it says the mean of the following is 8.5. Work out the value of x. Okay, so I'm going to set it up exactly the same way. So we are going to add, so if you want to pause it and have a go ahead. But I'm going to add all these numbers together. So 8, 11, 8, 9, x, and 2x. And in this question, we can see that we have 6 numbers. And the answer is 8.5. That's the mean. Okay, so just like in the last question, I'm going to simplify the top. So we have 3x because x plus 2x is 3x. And then if I add up all my numbers, we have 36. Divided by 6 is 8.5. And then I'm just going to solve exactly like the other one. So if I times both sides by 6, that denominator will disappear. And we have 51 on the right, minus 36 from both sides. I'm just going to take it up here. That means 3x is 15. Divide both sides by 3 because we only want 1x. So 3x divided by 3 is 1x. And then 15 divided by 3 is 5. So we know that x is 5. So if we go back to the question, that missing number is 5. And then 2 times 5, that missing number is 10. And if you want to just double check that, you can go back and answer the question. Instead of x, put 5 and 10 in and see if your answer is 8.5. Right, the next questions we're going to look at, these are taken from the Edexcel exam board, GCSE UK curriculum, but they're still really good questions. So here it says we have 25 students in class A, they did a science exam, and 30 students in class B did the same science exam. So there's 2 different classes. So we have class A and we have class B. It tells us that the mean number for the 25 students in class A is 67.8. And then it tells us the mean for all of 55 students, so both of these together, is 72.5. Can we use this information to work out class B? So have a little pause, have a go, and I'm going to go through this question. So what we're going to do first is we know that they've added all 25 students together. They've divided by 25 and they got an answer as 67.8. I don't necessarily need to know what each student is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it X. Okay, so I'm going to say I've added up all the students' grades. Okay, don't know what the answer is. I'm going to call it X. But when I divide it by 25, my answer is 67.8. And what that lets me do is it lets me work out what is the sum of all 25 students. So if I times both sides by 25, I know that all 25 students adds up to 1,695. Okay, so class A, all their grades together adds up to 1,695. Okay, class B, don't know what it is, okay, but I know, let's call it Y. If I do all of their grades added together and I divide that by 30, it's going to give me the mean. But that's what the question's asking me to do. So then I need to think, okay, what other information has it gave me? Well, it's told me that if I take class, so let's do them all. If I take class A, which I know adds up to X, and if I take class B, which adds up to Y, okay, and I divide it by 55 students, my answer is 72. But remember, I already know what X is. I've just worked that out. So instead of writing X, I can now write 1,695. So now I have an equation I can solve. So if I times both sides by 55, I have 1,695 plus y is going to equal 3,960. So that missing number there for y is going to be 2,265. So now I can put this into the equation I wrote before. So class B, their grades adds up to 2,265. There's 30 of them. So that means in this question that they have a mean of 75.5. So it's higher than class A. Yeah, so that's how we would do a question like that. Right, the next question, we can set them up really similar. So I'm going to answer these a little bit quicker. So in this question, we have a basketball team. And it says, okay, they played 11 games and their mean score was 33 per game. Okay, so I'm going to use X again. So that means they added the 11 games together. When they divided by 11, they got 33 points per game. That was their average. Okay. But then they said, okay, well, actually, if we only add up the first 10 games, so I'm going to call that Y, if they add them together and they divide it by 10 because they played 10 games, their mean was 2 points higher. So if it was 33, that means it was 2 points higher than if they'd done the 11. So it looks a little bit better if they don't have that additional game. So that means the first 11 games, when they added them together, equals 363. And it means for the second game, sorry, should put times by 11. The second game, if we times by 10, the total of the first 10 games adds up to 350. The question has said, okay, well, if this is the case, that means that the 11th game that brought the average down they scored 13 points. Well, if you look, the 11th games minus the 10 gives you 13. So that is correct. That 11th game was 13 points. That is the difference between them. Right, the last question I'm going to look at then is this one. So we have Mr. Brown gives his class a test. So if you want, have a little go at this question. It says there's 10 girls in the class and they have a mean of 70%. There's 15 boys in the class that have a mean of 80. So Nick says, well, that must mean the class's average is 75. So it looks like he's added them together and divided by 2. This is not right. That is incorrect. And we have to say, okay, is the actual mean of the whole class more or less? Okay, so we have girls. So again, we don't know what each individual score is, but we know we add them together. So if we add all 10 girls together, I'm going to call it X, and we divide by 10, they get 70%. And I'm going to write that just as a decimal. Okay, so 70% is 0.7, 80% is 0.8. So that means if I add up all of the girls' grades together, it's going to equal 7 or 700%, depending how you've answered the question. Then if I look at the boys, I know that we have, I'm going to call it Y, but there's 15. So if I add up all the boys and divide by 15, their answer was 0.8 or 80%. So if I times by 15 on both sides, that means the boys' grades added all together is 12 or 1,200, depending on how you wrote it. So now I know what the girls and the boys add up to. I can add them together and divide it by how many students we have in total, which is 25. And that will give me the mean of the whole class. So 19 divided by 25, if you're writing it as a decimal, is 0.76, but that should translate to 76%. So that means for this class, it was greater than 75 by 1%. So it's greater by 1%. And that was just looking at the mean in a little bit more detail in just different contexts. So the mean is we add them all up and divide by how many we have.